Good afternoon. I'm Tonya Arnesen, Senior Pastor of Jackson First United Methodist Church, and this is Food for Thought. Today is April 21st. It's a Tuesday, and today I want to talk about contentment. I'm not talking about passive resignation. Resignation allows us to throw up our hands in a difficult situation and do nothing to change it. Contentment, on the other hand, is a decision to accept things as they are and at the same time work to make them better. As blogger Barry Bennett puts it, true contentment is peace in the midst of any situation, but it is not the passive acceptance of any situation. The Apostle Paul wrote to the church in Philippi, whom he greeted with these words, "My brothers and sisters whom I love and long for, my joy and crown, my beloved." Ah, yes, Paul knew the sorrow of being separated from those he loved, even as we do. In the same letter, Philippians 4, verses 11 through 13, he writes, "I have learned to be content with whatever I have. I know what it is to have little, and I know what it is to have plenty. In any and all circumstances, I have learned the secret of being well fed and of going hungry, of having plenty and being in need. I can do all things through him who strengthens me." Now hold on to that thought. As a child, when I complained about my circumstances, my dear grandmother, Morris, whom I called Gigi, would say, "Tonya, remember, it could be worse." Which brings to mind this children's book from Margot Zemak, "It Could Always Be Worse." I know this isn't a children's story time, but I invite you to indulge me, if you will, as I share this thoughtful story with you. I'm going to shift my screen around so you can see the pictures. Once upon a time, in a small village, a poor, unfortunate man lived with his mother, his wife, and his 6 children in a little one-room hut. Because they were so crowded, the man and his wife often argued. The children were noisy and they fought. In winter, when the nights were long and the days were cold, life was especially hard. The hut was full of crying and quarreling. One day, when the poor unfortunate man couldn't stand it any longer, he ran to the rabbi for advice. "Holy Rabbi," he cried, "things are in a bad way with me and getting worse. We are so poor that my mother, my wife, my 6 children, and I all live together in one small hut. We are too crowded, and there's so much noise. Help me, Rabbi. I'll do whatever you say." The rabbi thought and pulled his beard. At last he said, "Tell me, my poor man, do you have any animals? Perhaps a chicken or 2? "Yes," said the man, "I do have a few chicken, also a rooster and a goose." "Ah, fine," said the rabbi. "Now go home and take the chickens, the rooster, and the goose into your hut to live with you." "Yes, indeed, Rabbi," said the man, though he was a bit surprised. The poor unfortunate man hurried home and took the chickens, the rooster, and the goose out of the shed and into his little hut. When some days or a week had gone by, life in the hut was worse than before. Now, with the quarreling and crying, there was honking, crowing, and clucking. There were feathers in the soup. The hut stayed just as small, and the children grew bigger. When the poor, unfortunate man couldn't stand it any longer, he again ran to the rabbi for help. "Holy Rabbi," he cried, "see what a misfortune has befallen me. Now with the crying and quarreling, with the honking, clucking, and crowing, there are feathers in the soup. Rabbi, it couldn't be worse. Help me, please. The rabbi listened and thought. At last he said, Tell me, do you have a goat? Oh, yes, I do have an old goat, but he's not worth much. Excellent, said the rabbi. Now go home and take the old goat into your hut to live with you. Ah, no! Do you really mean it? Cried the man. Come, come now, my good man, and do as I say at once, said the rabbi. The poor, unfortunate man tramped back home with his head hanging down and took the old goat into his hut. When some days or a week had gone by, life in the little hut was much worse. Now, with the crying, quarreling, clucking, honking, and crowing, the goat went wild, pushing and butting everyone with his horns. The hut seemed smaller. The children grew bigger. When the poor, unfortunate man couldn't stand it another minute, he again ran to the rabbi. Holy Rabbi, help me, he said. Now the goat is running wild. My life is a nightmare. The rabbi listened and thought. At last he said, Tell me, my poor man, is it possible that you have a cow? Young or old doesn't matter. Yes, Rabbi, it's true, I have a cow, said the poor man fearfully. Go home then, said the rabbi, and take the cow into your hut. Oh, no, surely not, Rabbi, cried the man. Do it at once, said the rabbi. The poor, unfortunate man trudged home with a heavy heart and took the cow into his hut. Is this rabbi crazy, he thought. When some days or a week had gone by, life in the hut was very much worse than before. Everyone quarreled, even the chickens. The goat ran wild. The cow trampled everything. The poor man could hardly believe his misfortune. At last, when he could stand it no longer, he ran to the rabbi for help. Holy Rabbi, he shrieked, help me, save me. The end of the world has come. The cow has trampled everything. There is no room even to breathe. It's worse than a nightmare. The rabbi listened and thought. At last he said, Go home now, my poor, unfortunate man, and let the animals out of your hut. I will. I'll do it right away. The poor, unfortunate man hurried home and let the cow, the goat, the chicken, and the rooster out of his little hut. That night, the poor man and all his family slept peacefully. There was no crowing, no clucking, no honking. There was plenty of room to breathe. The very next day, the poor man ran back to the rabbi. Holy Rabbi, he cried, you have made life sweet for me. With just my family in the hut, it's so quiet, so roomy, so peaceful. What a pleasure. My friends, we know these are trying times for all of us. We long to be with the people that we love. It's become a major undertaking just to get groceries and basic supplies for our households, and many in our community are homeless or are going hungry. Our healthcare workers are being pushed to the very limits of their physical and emotional health, and all of us just want to get back to some semblance of normal. Will we throw up our hands in passive resignation now, or will we seek peace for our situation? I invite us all to join together in cultivating an attitude of contentment with these two mantras in head and heart. First, it could always be worse. And second, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. I will see you again tomorrow. In the meantime, be blessed, be well, and know you are beloved. Amen.